Thanks to a system of satellites, natural disasters have become a thing of the past. We can control our weather.
So satellite has a bad comm, that happens.
Not a satellite, all of them.
This wasn't a malfunction. It was intentional.
There's potential for catastrophic weather events on a global scale. A geostorm.
Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, to preserve their rights, and to defend their values. As President of the United States, I will always put America first. It is an eternal credit to the American character that even after we and our allies emerged victorious from the bloodiest war in history, we did not seek territorial expansion or attempt to oppose and impose our way of life on others. Now, North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. Its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world.
Los temas fundamentales para reformar la ONU son tres. Primero, si el terrorismo va a ser definido exactamente respecto a los países que lo propician. Segundo, si se seguirá aceptando que la intervención en otras naciones ocupando ilegalmente territorio sea permitida. Y tercera, y la más importante, cómo se decidirá si una nación acepta o no estos requisitos, estas medidas. La resolución palestina sobre Israel no ha sido tomada en cuenta. Tampoco se ha tomado en cuenta que hoy día existe una intervención u ocupación ilegal por parte del régimen estadounidense en Siria o Irak. Tampoco se ha tomado en cuenta que Arabia Saudita invade países, detona bombas y elimina personas. Es decir, en este momento, uno de los temas principales tiene que ser cómo se hace efectiva toda resolución de las Naciones Unidas. Es que en realidad Hollywood está presente en el mundo y este es un teatro donde se hace discursos altisonantes, sin embargo en realidad se está trabajando en acuerdos secretos, como por ejemplo la fragmentación de Irak. Es decir, en la ONU se plantea un espectáculo y en realidad por debajo se sigue apoyando al terrorismo y se sigue apoyando los procesos en contra de la soberanía. Ese es el espectáculo que se da en la ONU.
All this stuff from Trump and May this week about the need for UN reform is related to the plan to move and morph the UN into a fully fledged world government, a centralized dictatorship dictating to every community and every country. So that's what we're seeing now. This word reform is a classic buzzword for this hidden hand. Remember how Tony Blair was always talking about reform, reform, reform. What that is a code word for is changing the status quo to take us further down the road to this agenda for the centralization of global power. We need to watch this very carefully from now on, because you're going to see more and more talk about the need to reform the United Nations. And you're going to hear them talking about the fact that the United Nations has to have more power.
South Korea and North Korea have tried at different times to initiate some kind of a meaningful peace process. And almost at every turn, the United States will intervene in one way or another to try to break up that sort of bilateral negotiations between the North and the South. The United States has a demilitarized zone between the North and South Korea with 30,000 troops and military contractors and civilian personnel based there. They have a base in Okinawa. They have a base in Japan. They have a base in Guam. They have a base in the Philippines. The problem is the United States. I'm sure that North and South Korea could eventually work this out to have a peace treaty, but that's not what's happening now. The United States is intervening for one simple fact, because the whole Pacific Rim agenda is predicated on poor relations with North Korea and war footing. Otherwise, the U.S. would have no business in the Pacific, and the only reason they're there is to counter China. So North Korea is just theater. This is a staged, managed geopolitical theater, and it's very dangerous what the United States is doing right now, what this president is doing right now, and pushing the envelope in a very negative way. If you listen to the words of Donald Trump at the UN General Assembly, wouldn't you want a nuclear deterrent as well? He's threatening to destroy a country. There's 25 million people that live there, and it's an idiotic statement by the United States president for this simple reason. If you nuked North Korea, you would also create huge nuclear contamination that would kill so many people in the South. It would make huge areas uninhabitable and parts of China. It's not going to happen. Everyone knows the United States is not going to nuke North Korea. It's the message that the military-industrial complex in the United States, all the defense contractors, they want to hear this. This is, the message of the neoconservative war hawks. So that's basically who he's talking to. In terms of diplomacy, it's completely counterproductive. In terms of China relations, it's very poor form. This is just basic U.S. behavior. A government that's dominated by the Pentagon, by the defense industry, by these interests.
So far, to me, this has all the makings of a Manchurian Candidate. The first day of reporting, there's nothing about this guy. And I always wait. You don't ever have to wait too long to see all the irregularities, to see all the lies, and then to see the demonization of the supposed shooter, which, of course, they're always dead. So dead men tell no tales. It's deliberate. A lot of people that call themselves alternative media, they make the mistake every time something like this happens to say it didn't happen or no one was killed. And that's a disservice because our governments have no problem killing us, okay, for their political agenda. So if Americans have to die, so be it. And now they're claiming this is the biggest mass shooting in American history. What a lie. 9/11, where 3,000 of us were killed for a political agenda. How did this guy get these super heavy, gigantic guns? How did he get so many of them into a hotel room? You know, it wasn't like he's 20 years old and could book it up the stairs with 17, machine guns. It's the same old story. I don't want to investigate them anymore because they are all the same. Every single time we have a shooting like this, gun sales go up. And this happened the same week that Congress is supposed to vote on whether or not to legalize silencers for everybody's guns. You have to remember, these people are on a global mission to put the world in a global continuous state of fear so that we can have a one world police, one world army. So these things don't happen simultaneously by accident.
Cataluña no será el único ejemplo en Europa. Esto también es lo que se está hablando ahora, porque la caja de Pandora está abierta. Dicen una caja de Pandora que vendría, por ejemplo, pues por las voluntades y aspiraciones de otros países, o incluso dentro de las mismas regiones españolas, por ejemplo, el pancatalanismo o los deseos de independencia que podría tener el pueblo vasco.
Yo pienso que ahora mismo la Unión Europea está jugando un doble juego. Un doble juego porque en la Unión Europea hoy en día no responde al interés de los ciudadanos en su conjunto, sino que está respondiendo al interés de una casta política que tiene otro tipo de intereses. Entonces, esta casta política de la Unión Europea lo que quiere son estados débiles. Quieren estados muy débiles, sumisos a intereses de entidades supranacionales, a los que se pueda manejar bien, a los que se les pueda imponer bien, ya sean políticas de recortes, políticas internacionales, sanciones a terceros países. Esto es algo evidente. Cuanto mayor unidad, mayor fuerza. Sí podríamos denominar a lo que está sucediendo ahora mismo en Cataluña es una revolución de color. Y cuando hablamos de revolución de color, recordamos que hubo una revolución de color también en Serbia. Hemos visto cómo hace poco ha habido una revolución de color en Macedonia, que no ha tenido éxito del todo. Hemos visto cómo hubo una revolución de color en Ucrania, y tras todas esas revoluciones de color, al final todas se apuntan a Soros como cabeza visible, como un think tank, como una fuerza de choque financiadora. Soros es el que ha estado financiando al separatismo catalán.
So basically, cancer is abnormal growth of cell. And basically, they lose the apoptosis, programmed cell death. They don't die, they become immortal. And your body's immune system usually take care of the abnormal cell in your body. We do all have about 10 to 100,000 abnormal cells every day. But our immune system's job is to get rid of those cells if your immune system is perfect. If you don't have virus that is already trying to fight, if you don't have too much chemical or other stuff going on in your body. Then they keep growing and growing, increasing in number, and then you get a tumor.
And so the tumor really is a result of a lot of years of things going wrong.
Suppression of immune system, exactly.
Cancer is the major breakdown in systemic communication. So what happens with the cancer, when the communication is running correctly and our lines of communication are open, then the body detects that growth on an early stage and suppresses it. However, when the lines are broken, that's when happens that the body does not see the developing tissue until it is too late.
The present orthodox view is that cancer is a lump or a bump. That's the cancer. And if that's the assumption. Now, if that is true, then to get rid of cancer, all you have to do is get rid of the lump or the bump. And hence we have surgery. Well, that gets rid of the lump or the bump. Or we have chemotherapy, which poisons the lump or the bump. We got rid of it. Or we have radiation, which burns it and got rid of it. And you undergo these three therapies, and if you get rid of the lump or the bump, the doctor will say, it looks like we got it all. But did they? No, the statistics show that in most cases it comes back. They didn't get it all because that was never the cancer in the first place.
What is a cancer cell and where does it come from?
Well, we used to think that any cell could become cancer except for a few limited ones. We thought that if you irritate a cell enough and damage its DNA enough, it'll become immortal and just keep growing. Now we find out, well, that's not true. Only stem cells seem to be the source of cancers. If you damage the DNA of the stem cell, it'll become immortal. And then it just keeps producing more and more cells. It wakes up and it's producing lots and lots, thousands, millions, billions of cells. And it becomes a cancer. The trouble with chemotherapy and conventional treatments is they have no effect on the cancer stem cell. They only kill the daughter cells, the cells that are produced by it. So the tumor will shrink and they'll claim success, but you haven't killed the stem cell, so it all just comes right back. And what they found is when it comes back infinitely more aggressive than it did before.
So stem cells are the key, and chemotherapy and radiation actually enrich stem cells. Despite this fact, as we've already learned, many doctors from countries across the globe might even lose their license if they do not prescribe chemo and radiation. Are you beginning to see the way that Big Pharma has its tentacles throughout this medical cartel, especially when it comes to chemotherapy?
There are many physicians who are truly authentically motivated to want to help people, but there is this pervasive fear that they are going to be discredited and ostracized in their own community, and when they start to embrace some of these alternative philosophies. So that's a strategy that's used to suppress this type of information. When you've got tens of billions of dollars of revenue, there is no limit to the clever and sophisticated techniques that you can acquire to manipulate the masses.
From the very onset, from the very planning of chemotherapy, from the very scientific approach, it is a deception. It is an unethical, deceptive business that creates illusions for millions of people, and every scientist involved in it. I'm not blaming the doctors. They sometimes don't have the education to go at that length. But every scientist knows that it is a huge fraud.
Yes, modern medicine is a business. And just like any business, the goal is to grow this business and also to eliminate competition and to maintain the monopoly.
Chemotherapy uses the most powerful toxins known to humans, and these toxins, of course, are being sold to us as substances that can kill cancer cells. And also the very substances that are being used to fight cancer are cancer-causing chemicals. So instead of eliminating cancer or curbing cancer, we are inducing, generating new cancers.
And you'll never have an oncologist ask, well, what caused this? And let's get rid of what caused it. You'll never hear that question. They only have one thing, and that is kill cancer cells. Well, what caused the cancer cells? Why did this occur in the body? Obviously, the immune system was suppressed, so are we going to unsuppress the immune system? Are we going to stimulate the immune system back into action? So there are many things to do other than just give a poison to the body to kill cancer cells.
It's a psychological warfare on humanity that the pharmaceutical industry is leading with the tool cancer. Keeping cancer as a death verdict is the platform, is a precondition for this entire investment industry to continue.
So very similar with the vaccines, we're seeing these forced chemotherapy incidents. They're linked, aren't they? It's yes. an overarching government, tyrannical government, that comes in and says, you don't have any choice, we're going to tell you what's best.
But the so-called science-driven medicine is being forced upon you now in absolute violation of the American Medical Association's Code of Medical Ethics, which says that the patient must be given the choice, the patient must be informed. But parents are being told you must submit your children to these interventions, whether you like it or not.
What if someone was going to take your child from you? What if they were going to inject and expose your child to harmful toxins that could threaten their life? What if you knew the treatment they would force could take your child's life? What would you do? This was the heart-wrenching situation that Todd Jones faced when his 2-year-old daughter, Janae, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
We said, okay, let's get her on the treatment. And the treatment it's an intensified treatment for 30 days where they use vincristine chemotherapy and steroids. And that little child just got loaded up with that stuff daily. We made a decision that we wanted to, since the cancer was so far down and in remission, as they say, and they told us themselves, that we were like, okay, you know what? Thank you for your business. We're good now. We're going to go ahead and build her up naturally now that the cancer and half of her, system has been, chemoed, chemically cleansed. We're going to go in and put in the natural good stuff now and see how we can get her to respond there. Well, the hospital didn't like that. When that happened, it wasn't 3 days later, and there was that very, very, very loud, aggressive knock at our door. It was the Office of Child Services. And they came and they said, look, the hospital called, you have taken your child out of treatment, and you need to bring your child right back to treatment.
Okay. One emotion that's very detrimental to a cancer patient is fear. What emotion is it that an oncologist will elicit in the cancer patient when they look them in the eye and they say, you've got 3 months to live?
I was diagnosed with stage 2